Hi, everyone. I am Austin Parker, Director of Open Source at Honeycomb.io, a member of the OpenTelemetry Governance Committee. Well, here to welcome you to OpenTelemetry Unpacking 2025, Charting 2026, joined today by...
My name is Morgan McLean. I'm a Senior Director of PM at Splunk. I'm also one of the co-founders of the OpenTelemetry project, and like Austin, I'm on the Governance Committee.
And I'm Josh Suereth. I'm a something at Google, and I'm on the technical committee for OpenTelemetry.
And we would be joined by Alolita Sharma, but unfortunately her plane was canceled and was not able to attend. So, yeah, everyone bother her on Slack and say, "Hi, Alolita."
Yeah, but we will cover the rest. So we're going to start with the status of the project, which is how we typically start these presentations. So OpenTelemetry continues to grow. Over the past 12 months, we've had over 400 companies that have made more than 10 commits each. This is an increase from previous years and previous sessions. And 168 companies with more than 50 commits each. So OpenTelemetry is it's not totally entirely uniquely, but like it is a sort of a rarity, I think, in the open source community, like how many different companies and contributors are pushing code into it. It's not dominated by any one firm or even a handful of firms, which is really, really exciting. Also exciting is how many of those firms that are donating code are end users of the project, which I think speaks to its value. Yeah, even amongst contributors, we have really strong diversity amongst them. Half of our contributions come from the top 40 contributors. That's a fairly healthy statistic for an open source project. That's like there's the bus factor is relatively low. And the median time from opening a PR to merging it is steady at about 6 hours, which is very, very good.
Who here is a contributor?
Awesome.
Awesome, yeah. Give yourselves a hand.
Thank you for your contributions.
Thank you, yes. And if you're a maintainer and haven't gotten one of these shirts yet, come find us.
Yeah, they're really great shirts. All right, monthly active contributors continues to grow linearly, which is really impressive considering the maturity of OpenTelemetry. I would have expected it to plateau at some point, but this is really, really great. Again, I think speaks to the value that the project is providing to people in the community. And as we've seen, we have a lot of contributors in the house, and I assume a lot of end users. OpenTelemetry is being used everywhere across the industry right now. It has integrations with basically everything. So thank you to everyone who uses and contributes to OpenTelemetry for making that work and for continuing to grow our really exciting community. We had our project meeting, not yesterday, but the day before. We took a photo of the maintainers who were there. We're going to try and do more and more of these sort of maintainer and end user focused project meetings going forward. I think that's part of the focus of the Unplugged event that's happening next spring. So you can look that up if you're interested in doing that, where we want to just get more and more of the community together so they can hash out important like development challenges and spec issues and things in person and continue to drive the project forward.
So next we're going to talk a little bit about new releases in OpenTelemetry. I'll slide over. Yeah. So we had a few things that we're going to call out here. There's a lot of movement in OpenTelemetry. These are just the things we're highlighting. So if your project had some releases that we're not covering, apologies. But yeah, a few big things. Configuration. So this is file-based configuration. This is similar kind of controls across SDKs and languages. This is now implemented in Java, Go, PHP, C++. There's releases. Please try this out. Give us feedback on the configuration. It's going to take a while for us to kind of finish all of this and make sure it's all consistent. So feedback is important.
I think JavaScript is also like RC.
JavaScript's RC now. Sweet.
I think so, or it's close.
Yeah. So you should see this fully rolled out rather soon across OpenTelemetry, but please take a look, try it out, let us know. eBPF instrumentation, I think it's now called OB, where the B is for eBPF. That one just had its first release. Really exciting here. This is instrumentation that you can hit any process and pull in information. Very cool. Please take a look at that.
And Josh, I think the big benefit of that is specifically for like languages like Go and C++, which you previously could not auto-instrument.
Yes,
correct?
this gives us the ability to auto-instrument things like C++, Go, Rust, and actually get the kind of HTTP semcov that you might think of, get some tracing. There's a lot of power coming out of eBPF. Very excited about its future. So when you think auto-instrumentation, eBPF should be in your mind. Database semantics. So database semantics are now stable which means the instrumentation OpenTelemetry will start to stabilize across the database ecosystem. So that's also very exciting. We want to do a shout out here around the Prometheus ecosystem and OpenTelemetry compatibility. We've had a lot of really good engagement with OpenTelemetry and Prometheus, and I think you've seen a lot of features in Prometheus around OpenTelemetry compatibility. We've been trying to get that specification completely stable, have a really good story, and Prometheus has been willing to add a lot of features to make that story very strong. So if you haven't tried out some of the Prometheus features for OpenTelemetry, I'm actually personally really happy with where that's been going, and it's so much better now than it's ever been. So please take a look at that. Wanted to call that out. Last is actually, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention AI at some point in a talk. Generative AI has had a lot of progress. So there is instrumentation for generative AI-based observability. Java, JavaScript, OpenAI has things, Vertex AI has things. Please take a look. That is a very active area in OpenTelemetry, and thank you for all of our contributors who are keeping up with it.
I also want to shout out, we've seen a lot of native integration of OTel in sort of the generative AI tooling space. So if you're familiar with Claude Code from Anthropic or Codex from OpenAI, both of these now will natively output traces, metrics, things like that in OTel format, which is really cool to see. And it's really cool to see kind of the generative AI community adopting OTel as sort of the instrumentation lingua franca.
Yeah, and with that, let's move on to what's coming next.
Yes, with our censored AI content. So this is probably the biggest part of this. We don't want to dwell too overly much on this because we do want to leave plenty of time for questions. But the big things that we are seeing in near term, so next 6 months, 6 to 8 months, I would say. Host metric semantic conventions, so we want to be able to stabilize and normalize sort of the node metric equivalent for OTel. We want to stabilize a lot of the generative AI instrumentation, especially for the API. Things like token usage, right? Things like things that maybe you would expect or hope to see at a remote API level and not just at the client API level. The OpenTelemetry injector, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So the OpenTelemetry injector is a relatively new part of OpenTelemetry. The big focus of it is setting up all OpenTelemetry components automatically. So a lot of the feedback we hear in the community, a lot of the feedback I hear in my job from our customers is, hey, OpenTelemetry is great. It has all the integrations I need. It can capture all the data I need. And yet I have all of these hosts, container clusters, and I have to configure each one uniquely have the right OpenTelemetry components on it, have the right YAML files to configure them. Golly, that's annoying and hard to manage. And so the whole purpose of the injector is you can drop it onto a box on Linux or Windows, and I think there's similar features in the operator for Kubernetes, and it will just go and apply the correct instrumentation, maybe Java, .NET, or Python, or whatever's needed, and you don't need to touch it at all. We had a similar thing at Splunk from our customers, which had led to this contribution, and for us, it reduced our customer feedback volume, but negative customer feedback volume by 80%. So super, super cool. Definitely recommend trying it out or contributing to it.
Yeah. Similarly, we want to continue to improve the operator experience a lot. What we're kind of seeing, talking to people, is that a lot of people's first experience with OTel is through the operator, through our Helm charts, through our CRDs, and so we want to really tighten those up and make that a much more polished experience. And part of that is actually going to be through Weaver, so our federated conventions and validation, and Josh has a few words on that.
Yeah, so we'll go into this a little bit more, but Weaver is kind of the secret sauce behind semantic conventions and making sure things are stable in OpenTelemetry, that you understand what we will generate, the data. We want to federate this, and we want to make this so that you can use this yourself in a project, that it's easy to do that. And we want to start breaking apart the pieces of OpenTelemetry that rely on this big, massive semantic convention repository to where you can make an individual thing easily. You can publish what you're going to do, and you can keep it stable on behalf of your users without having to be part of our big machinery, right? So that's what federated validation and conventions is for Weaver.
And what else? Oh, right, more events. So wait a second.
What kind of events, Austin?
This isn't the right thing.
Wait, are these logs or are these events?
Wait, hold on. Logs? We don't do logs in OTel. What are you talking? So we mean events. No, get out, leave. That was a joke. So who here is like super familiar with the history of the log signal in OpenTelemetry? Okay, if you're not raising your hand, then good, you sleep well at night, I hope. One of the things that, to give a little preface here, when we stabilized sort of parts of our logging API a few years ago, it was with the idea that the way that people would want to consume logging in OTel was not through a new logging API, because there's plenty of great logging APIs out there. And so what we did is we added a bridge API, and the idea was you add OTel SDK as an appender to your existing logging API, and then we will take your existing logs and then hydrate them with OTel context and then spit them out on our log signal through our log pipeline to the collector or wherever else. And this was an okay idea that unfortunately has run to the buzzsaw of semantic conventions, specifically with a need for complex attributes in OpenTelemetry. Now, who here has the OTLP memorized? Good, nobody. OTLP, you might have noticed for a while, has always had the ability to set any type as a, or proto any type as a value for an attribute. And an attribute is common throughout all signals. And the idea is we want to kind of future-proof ourselves a little bit, right? Now, the spec says the only thing we expect to see as attribute values are primitives like string, float, bool, whatever. But we've always had this kind of like, hey, yeah, this could accept anything if we really wanted to. And we've recently, starting with, I think, OTLP 119? 1.0.9.
What? Yeah,
1.90. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew there was a 9 in there somewhere. You will be able to emit from the API, once APIs update to support this, you will be able to emit a complex attribute such as a JSON object, such as a map, or any kind of map or array, and we expect consumers to handle this. Now, the way they handle that is kind of up to them, but this is important because of event.name, and event.name is how you would get to this third part, which is event semantic conventions. And the basic idea, I've said a lot of words here, and I want to make it simpler. The basic idea is our new evolved way of thinking about logging in OTel is that really these are just structured logs, right? You have spans to kind of track things with duration. You have metrics to do pre-aggregations across events that are happening in your system. But sometimes you have things that either exist outside of the span lifecycle and so can't be associated back to an individual request, or are truly exceptional events. Or maybe there's some other reason that you can't like emit this as part of as a span attribute. And this is the idea with events. You'll be able to publish semantic events. We will publish some semantic events as part of semantic conventions, but you'd be kind of come up with your own registry using the same tools we were talking about earlier with Weaver and so on and so forth. And then really just kind of codify your structured logging into these event schemas and publish events. And if you already have a way to publish things that are shaped like this, then cool, you can keep doing that. You would just use the event.name and make sure that your logs match the schema of the event.
Yeah, so the takeaway here for everybody, we don't have logs anymore. I mean, we do, but we're calling them events, and we're consistently calling them events. They're always events. And the events can be a string or a structure. That's the thing everybody needs to know. An event.name is your ability to tag these things so you can remember the details of the structure and reconstitute it later. So if your backend wants to do crazy storage things, go for it. That's the key. So we're going to talk about OpenTelemetry eventing. And those of you who think of OpenTelemetry logging, well, yeah, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And if you're just using the collector to tail logs from your disk, like that all still works. Like
right.
Yeah,
Nothing changes about the current status quo. Now you have a way to create these strongly typed events that other things in your pipeline can be aware of.
Which was something we always wanted, even from the beginning.
Yes.
Yep. Cool.
So, and they're called events. So outside that sort of 6 to 8 month window, what we're thinking about kind of longer term is sort of 4 things, 3 of which are on here. The first is profiling.
Yep.
Do you wanna
So
talk a little bit about-
profiling is an interesting one because we've already released a lot of things related to profiling, but there's a lot more to come. And so stay tuned. I think there's a lot of protocol work going on for profiling right now to make the story complete.
Yep.
And there's more that'll come after that. So it's a big, big story for OpenTelemetry.
Yeah, and the key here is profiling is a lot of data. We want to make sure it's efficient. And so we're spending a lot of times doing that. So
The next thing is mainframes. We've had a working group on this for about a year now, almost.
Yeah, and releases of the collector for various mainframe.
For like ZOS and something else. So we're going to continually be improving that. We do have a non-zero amount of users of the collector and of OTel that are on mainframes. So, look forward to support for that continuing to get better, and for us to continue building that relationship and those inroads into the mainframe, into IBM. And finally, I think something that's really exciting is Apache Arrow Phase 2, which is ongoing. Do you want to, who would be the best person to give more color to this?
I can add some color here.
Not me.
Okay. Yeah. So Arrow is a really interesting opportunity for us of starting to look into Parquet and the whole Apache Arrow ecosystem. And one of the things from my standpoint is you have a CPU. Your CPU is really good at single instruction multi-dispatch, right? This is an efficient thing that we can do. And our current protocol is optimized not to do that. But with Arrow, it is. We start using columnar representation. And so the phase 2 is starting to look at if we use, phase 1 was what happens with the protocol if we send it. Phase 2 is, can we optimize the collector to do a better job if we can leverage SIMD instructions or that sort of thing using this Arrow/Parquet type format for data going from A to B. And I think there's a lot of really cool things that will come out of that. And if you're excited about this, if you're into that Arrow space, that was not meant to be a pun, but it is. Please join. I think there's some really cool stuff that'll come.
I do want to emphasize, we don't expect this Arrow stuff to necessarily land in a user-facing way.
Correct.
We're not going to change defaults. We're not that. Looking at this is a long-term evolution of OTLP mostly, and a way for us to better capture the broad array of use cases that our user base is sort of requesting. And actually, to that end, there's a 4th thing that we are doing both short and long-term, and it's this stability focus. So we recently published a blog post, actually on Saturday, about this, kind of declaring our intent as the GC to help focus the project on these kind of 3 big categories of stability. And we will be proposing these and kind of having a public discussion about them. But we want to go through at a high level and talk about what what our goals are for this project. So I will start. One of the challenges that we hear from end users, who here considers themselves an OTel end user? So a lot of y'all. Cool. How many of you run collector contrib in production? How many of you know the stability of each component in collector contrib?
I don't believe you.
Some of y'all don't count. But
you're a maintainer.
Yeah. But one thing that's really challenging for a lot of end users, we feel and we've kind of gotten this feedback, is it's not clear what to expect from certain parts of OTel. You want to use the collector, everyone tells you the collector is great, you go in, you get collector contrib, and it's oh, this is fine, and then you configure something, and then the next week you pull an update and your config breaks. Why? Who knows?
Or your config stays the same, or your config works, but the metrics or traces it generates change.
The metadata changes, or the performance profile of the collector suddenly changes for that integration. And the reason that this happens to a non-zero amount of people is because the collector contrib is experimental by default. And we do have a metadata file. Unfortunately, it's buried in the GitHub repo for contrib, so you have to go in and you have to know, this receiver has a README that has this data in it, and we don't advertise this stuff as well as we could, right? So when we talk about stable by default, what we are really saying is we believe there should be a single unified way for you as end users and for us as maintainers and contributors to publish the stability of individual components, to refine our standards around stability to include things like example code, example configurations, cookbooks and deployment guides, documentation in a, on the website rather than just in a README file somewhere. And third, and maybe like the biggest one here, is that when you get something that is stable, everything in it is guaranteed to be stable, right? So the desired future state is you would get some sort of collector distribution from us and whenever you installed it, you could guarantee that like when I update this, I'm not going to break anything. Nothing's going to change, at least not without going through a deprecation process.
If it will. Yeah.
And also that you can go and look at like a benchmark of, hey, this is the resource profile of this collector or this instrumentation or so on and so forth. So part of that though is.
Yeah, the second piece is what we're alluding to with Weaver before in this federated semantic conventions, right? So we want the ability for everyone, and this will impact OpenTelemetry first, but everyone should be able to do this. You can define what your telemetry will look like. Like here's the shape of my metric, here's the shape of my spans, and then we'll have a set of like policies and tests and things that you can use to make sure that if you want to make a breaking change, you're aware of it. So I know when to bump major versions, and if I don't want to make a breaking change, my CI/CD will fail because I can't change definitions in a way that would break somebody's observability solution. So we're planning to take what we have in Weaver and make that federated, so different components can pull in, define their telemetry, and keep it stable in their own timelines and timeframes as they need across the whole ecosystem. So that's coming. Do you want to talk about the coordinated releases?
No.
Okay. All right.
I could talk about them.
This is your guys' section.
Go ahead.
So the coordinated releases thing is probably the least specified part of this, but one thing we have also heard is that the release cadence for OTel is difficult for end users. If anyone here is in sort of like finance or healthcare or wherever, how much fun do you have trying to convince your security team to like recertify collector releases and or build your own with OCB, right? Super fun process for everyone. And what we see in practice is that means that people are running, 0.73, 0.80, 0.90 for like a year or two at a time, and they're not able to really, get onto newer things. They're not able, when combined with this other stabilization stuff we're talking about.
Which further increases the scope of changes when they finally upgrade.
So what we are planning on doing is we would like to constitute a release SIG similar to, at least in spirit, to how Kubernetes has one. And the goal of this will be to define a stable set of sort of epoch releases. And an epoch release would be defined as it is all of these versions of all OpenTelemetry components together. And they've been smoke tested to work together. The instrumentation works together. They all meet some bar. And that would be sort of, how we would hope that a lot of users would start to consume OTel, right? This isn't going to change. Like, SIGs can still release more frequently, right? SIGs can release every week if they wanted. We don't want to make maintainers' lives hell with this. What we want to be able to do is offer you as users, a more stable sort of cadence of updates, something that's maybe 3 or 4 times a year rather than potentially 30.
The most important part here is, I think, the next slide, which is where we want you to join in this discussion about how we're going to implement these features. These are the goals of the project. This is where we're going. That's been decided. But the way that we get there and your needs and how we can meet the needs of the community, we're having active discussions on this and making sure that we address this appropriately. So if you have concerns, if you want to join that discussion and define what this looks like, please come give us feedback. We'd value it highly.
Yeah, we don't want this to be some top-down thing from the governance committee that like pisses off maintainers or something, right? Like, so if you have feedback, positive or negative, we want to hear it. This QR code is not for a feedback form for this talk.
Yeah, this is the actual GitHub discussion
where you can actually put your feedback to the whole proposal.
Yeah, this is for the stabilization proposal. Yep.
And in terms of how this actually shows up, if you're a contributor or maintainer, this will go through OTEPs, right? Like we will do OTEPs for kind of probably 3 or 4 depending on sort of the shape of the discussion. But we will define this stuff in the spec, and we will go through the standard process of stabilizing things. Again, we don't want this to be like top-down, we want this to be a discussion. We want to hear what works, what doesn't work. And we want to make your life easier, right? Part of the goal here is to make our maintainers' lives a little easier and give you permission to focus. Last but not least, before questions, we want to recognize the 2025 Community Stars. So this is a way to recognize our community members who have gone above and beyond. We actually do have a thing for you if you were here in person, but let's give it up to our Community Stars for the year.
To Vitor Vasconcelos, if you're here, please let us know.
Diana Todea?
So. If you're here, let us know. To Christos Marco.
Yeah, if you're here, please come up so we can see you.
Yeah, if you're here, come on up.
Yeah, come on up.
Brett McBride. And Josh Suereth.
Do we have a Josh Suereth somewhere?
Josh Suereth in the audience? And finally, Robert Pejak.
And Robert Pejak, yeah.
Pejak, yeah.
Unfortunately, I think Robert's on booth duty right
now. Oh, wow,
so I don't know
okay.
if he's in the room, but he's in Atlanta.
So come by the observatory tomorrow, and we actually do have a little thing for you. It's just we didn't pick it up today because it's really hard to get in and out of here. Anyone else notice that? The security lights?
But yeah, we have some prizes for you if you come by the observatory.
But yeah. So with that said, we have a few more minutes. I do want to open it up to questions, and we can obviously continue Q&A afterwards. So if you have a question, come on up to the thing.
And we have lots of maintainers in the house who can also
help
if any
of the maintainers want to come up and hang out, you can come up and hang out.
Hey, first of all, thanks for all the contributions. I'm new to OpenTelemetry. We started using it recently, but I have a question. Are we planning to offer anything for the end user metrics? Like, for example, if we open a website, how many clicks happen, and how the end user experience, something like
user analytics?
Yes.
So the question is, we're planning to provide anything around like user analytics. I think eventually we would like to see semantic conventions for that. Right now, a lot of that stuff is kind of blocked behind our browser work and browser stabilization. So there are, like, we didn't mention it on here, but that is like active work around browser and client-side instrumentation. And I think a lot of user analytics and RUM workloads, RUM sort of workloads are behind that.
Yeah, I think we missed that on the slides. Yeah, there's a lot of work going on.
There's actually like quite a bit of stuff around browser and client right
Android
now.
And browser, I think iOS.
Sorry for not mentioning that, but it's we're trying to not bring in a ton of more people. So
yeah, one thing I will say, there's like different areas of OpenTelemetry move at different speeds. That is active. We didn't put in the slides because we're trying to show you what we think is going to hit this next year. That one might take a little bit longer, but there are usable bits that are coming quickly. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Anyone
there's a mic here. If anyone has questions, feel free to walk up to the mic.
We can answer things about any part of OpenTelemetry, random trivia.
Yeah, you can ask us other things.
Hot takes on politics.
I have some stickers. I can give you stickers. What brings you to the OpenTelemetry maintainer track talk? Tough crowd.
Oh,
hey!
Question. Yay! Here, take the mic.
Thank you. Hi, my company right now uses a Google Managed Prometheus and the Monarch time database backend. And we're in the process of trying to re-architect how our metrics are collected and scraped. Google support, they were very enthusiastic about OTel. And it's currently in the beta support. Not fully supported, and also this is, of course, Google we're talking about. So has there been any collaboration between the Google team and the OTel team, and that you can share? And what's your confidence on GMP and?
If you have issues with Google Managed Prometheus and OTLP, I'm one of the people responsible for that, so you can talk to me. We can talk afterwards, but yeah, it should be fully supported. So it's in beta now, it should be released. Yeah, we're fully committed to making that compatibility work.
If you have a question, yep, I'll get you.
So I'm an SRE who's working to convince engineering teams to implement OpenTelemetry in their projects so that I can have visibility into the work that they're doing. And I'm finding a lot of struggles. We have two implementations specifically, Python and Go, and the implementations seem to be varied at best. Is there any work in the roadmap potentially for maybe not standardizing across languages, but working to have a core set of implementations across languages?
So I would broadly say that the stabilization work that we're talking about, like, would fall under that. Like, we want there to be a pretty common set of capabilities across all languages in those core releases, right? Without knowing more about the details of what you're talking about, it's hard to say for sure, but if you come find me after this and let me know like which capabilities specifically you're interested in. We do expect tracing to be pretty much the same everywhere right now. Metrics are a little bit more of a mixed bag, and events are also kind of a mixed bag. But yeah, come find us after this, and we'll.
One thing I'd like to add is we're trying to change a little bit how we roll out spec processes. So today, when we roll out a spec, basically we get a set of prototypes, and then once those prototypes prove we think the spec is implementable in every language, we release it. What we don't then do is follow up and make sure every SIG is successful in implementing and track that. We've done that a few places and it's very successful when we do, and we're starting to make that be a standard now for kind of specification changes. That's like one of the things we've been talking about with stability. So you have clear guidance and clear understanding of like the rollout of a feature across the ecosystem.
And another thing definitely is like sample code, is like better documentation, making sure that there's like when something goes into an SDK, that there's actually like an example of like, hey, this is how you use it, right? It's not just, here it is. You know, we want that to be part of the bar for stability as well.
Yeah, one more question I have. This is Sai Santosh. So each and every industry have its own sensitive data. So do we have, I don't know, I haven't read the much repository yet for hotel. Do we have any feature where we can mask a specific part of the event before logging or before sending an event? For example, credit card information, or for example, some other sensitive information, partial masking versus full masking. Do we have any such standard or masking feature in place?
So what we have today in terms of masking fields and things, there's collector components that can do this. So you can have a processor in the collector that can mask fields. I think that, I don't remember the stability of each of those. And then
I think it's stable. It's very well used.
It's very well used. If it's not stable, it's very well used, which is one of the problems we have is we use very well used to imply stability. Anyway, inside of SDKs, we do have a processor extension. And so that's the capability inside of like an SDK in language, where if you need to redact there or hide things, you would actually add that as an extension point. I don't believe we have a specified extension point that's consistent across all SDKs, but that is something you could provide externally, prove out as a prototype, and then if you wanted to run that through a stabilization process, that would be the path for that.
But if you need a solution now, like the masking through the collector configuration, like every financial institution I know of uses that. You can use regexes, you can match things however you want, and you can blank out any fields that you want blank.
I do want to say though, there has been some discussion about like taking like OTTL, which is the transform language in the collector, and maybe speccing that out and writing that down, which if we did that, that would provide a way to have like a spec compliant way to mask things across everything without having to, you know, deal with this. But yeah, the collector one does work pretty well. I think one more and then we're over time, but.
This is just a question I've been curious about for a long time. It sounds like you might be addressing this with the kind of distribution that you were talking about earlier. What's the deal with OpenTelemetry collector and OpenTelemetry collector contrib as like two distinct binaries and projects?
So quite broadly, all of our contrib stuff is meant to basically say this is not a core part of OTel, right? Like we know that we can't just really, like, it's almost a way of saying, hey, this is unspecified. This is stuff that like could be literally anything. Unfortunately, like it turns out that a lot of the stuff that could be literally anything is also very useful. So part of this stabilization process is probably going to be, can we move to like, can we pull some of that stuff out of contrib and into core? Can we
Or mark it in a special way in contrib.
or
something.
right, or some special way to say,
Yeah.
like, hey, this is sort of this isn't, it's not just like, a hypothetical example is, what if core OTel included instrumentation libraries for things that had stable OTel semantic conventions, right? That would be useful. That's the kind of ideas we're exploring.
Yeah.
But we have to have some way to make this like interpretable to people outside, because right now, as you said, there's no real clear explanation. Unless you could go in and you could read all the stuff and dig into it and get some level of like, yes, this is why this exists.
Practically every collector out there has all the a huge amount of the contrib stuff attached to it.
I use it for Prometheus. Like,
Yeah, to be honest, without it, it's not particularly useful. Yeah.
Right, and that's kind of a lot of things. It's not particularly useful without the contrib stuff and instrumentations. So we just need to, we are getting yanked off stage with a giant crook. So thank you so much for coming. We'll be able to have more questions later.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for using OpenTelemetry.